have the incredibly insightful Anna Ramondetta in the virtual house, and she's talking about 15 minutes to building a stronger, more engaged remote team culture, something we desperately need at the moment. Anna is the director of Luminus League. She's passionate about empowering leaders and teams to work better together so they can deliver on their business outcomes. Over the years, clients have ranged from franchising startups to established SMEs, through to well-known brand names such as Nestle, Dulux, Master Foods, and Mercedes-Benz, paving the way for Anna to build and refine a range of skills that are unique to her and invaluable to clients. Anyone who knows Anna is also familiar with her natural warmth and exuberance. Her genuine approach and her willingness to listen helps bring out the best in her clients. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Anna, I'll hand it on over to you.
That is a lovely introduction. Thank you, Kate. I was going to have a really stoic face there when you said warmth and exuberance, just to stir you up. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Bon appetit to you all. I hope you've all got a bit of lunch that you're going to chomp into as we get into this 30-minute webinar on how to build a stronger, more engaged remote team culture. Gosh, COVID, I feel like it's not that old chestnut again. That's all we talk about these days, but it really has changed the way that we do business and the way that we work and our whole lives, really. And even the businesses that are thriving now or are flourishing because of COVID, they've also they're not immune from it as well. They've had to readjust the way that they lead their teams. And also it's been mandated, hasn't it? It's been mandated that if you can work from home, you have to work from home, or partially, or some of your teams or partially your teams have to work from home. So there's a new way of leading now. And that's what I want to do today. I want to share for the next 25, 30 minutes, share some tips and strategies to put in place. And some of them you're probably already doing, let's face it, some of them you're probably already doing to build a stronger, more engaged remote team. And then what I want you to do, even if it's one morsel that you take out of today's session, what's one thing that you're going to implement straight away? And there's plenty of morsels here for you to take away and implement within 15 minutes. Okay, so let's get cracking. So since March, and since a big mandate, our teams as ourselves, we've been juggling with a hell of a lot more. I mean, this picture says it all. If a picture could speak 1,000 words than this one does. You know, we're juggling more than ever. We had kids from school, but now they've all gone to school here in Melbourne. So that's great. But we're juggling more than ever. There's a certain level of uncertainty and fear. We don't know what we're doing day to day in terms of if you know what the government's going to do next and so forth. There's less security, there's less confidence in our futures. And now we're sleeping at the office, the home office, you know. So the workplace and the boundaries between work and home life have really been blurred. So that's a really interesting thing. And if your team members haven't worked from home before, they've also learning how to adapt to that too, learning how to work from home and how to really divide those boundaries. It's an interesting study done by the World Economic Forum about some of the challenges that our teams are facing, especially those, like I said, that have never had to work from home before. And probably the biggest thing is this, because now that our homes also become our workplace, we're finding it really hard to unplug after work. It's really, really hard to not go, oh, okay, I'll just finish that one more email. It doesn't matter, I'll do that after dinner. So it's really important that we encourage our team and really drive home the message of unplugging after work and making sure that we're doing everything that we can to ensure that they have this work-life balance. You know, there's also the fact of being quite isolated. For many of our team members, work life was also their social life. So working now from home and not having their colleagues nearby, you know, there's also a sense of loneliness. Another difficulty can be collaborating and communicating because we're not seeing each other like we were seeing each other as much, or if we are, we're doing that virtually. And we all know the problems with technology. As blessed as we are that COVID's hit at a time when we can use technology to still work together, there are those particular issues. And again, like that picture showed us earlier on, we're also got kids at home, we've got our husbands or our partners at home, our housemates at home. So we're all trying to make best with what we've got by, you know, with all these other distractions at home. And again, if we're working on our own, staying motivated is another one. And not being able to go anywhere, especially here in Melbourne. And I am talking to my Melbourne friends here for this one in particular, taking time out and getting away from these four walls is also a bit of a challenge. However, it has awakened a real need, because a lot of us have been talking about loving to get a position or a role somewhere where we can have a couple of days from home. So COVID spearheaded this conversation. We've talked about work flexibility and had this conversation for a long time, but all of a sudden we've been thrust into working from home because there's some really, let's face it, some really great benefits. There's, you've got more of a flexible schedule, where we're working from a particular location. We're not commuting. We're not having to catch the train. We're spending more time with family. We're not having to travel to meetings. We can just log on like we have today for this particular webinar. So I think the key thing is, whilst COVID has thrust us into this, we have to accept that this is the future of our work environment too, that our team will come back to us post-COVID, and there will be more of a demand and more of a need around remote working and around having some flexibility in their roles, especially a lot of the literature that's out there now about millennials and dads in particular really getting a taste of being at home, and now also asking for more flexibility in their work schedule so that they can have some family time. So it's really important that it's here to stay, and it's changed the way we work moving forward and the way that we lead our teams. So that's why today's so relevant in the sense of we have to adopt some remote leadership skills. There was also a study done by Atlassian, the Australian tech giant, the ones responsible for Trello and Confluence software apps. And, their workforce, they interviewed over 1,000 Australian workers. So it was a global study. One of the key things that they identified was that, over 3/4 of the people they interviewed were annoyed that it took a pandemic to be able to work from home, and for their workplaces to see the value of being able to work from home. However, as much as there is a need to work flexibly, there's an overwhelming majority of Australian workers versus their global counterparts have also missed the energy of the workplace, being able to share ideas with their colleagues or pop out for a coffee or a chin wag or what have you. They really do miss the environment. So there's a real place for the office. And in fact, there was an article in Saturday's Age, and Rebecca Oakley, who's the HR executive at Officeworks, said the office will be less about coming in and doing tasks and more about collaborating and socializing. We've got a real need, there's nothing quite like face-to-face where you could read each other's body language and cues and build really strong relationships. So there's a real need between, having the ability to go in with your colleagues and share and ruminate and really generate some great ideas. Here's a tool that I've used in the past when it was just team mapping, and now I've called it the remote team map, because all of a sudden we've gone from a centralized location and everybody's working remotely, or parts of our team are working remotely. And this is one document and one strategy that I wholeheartedly impress on you to do with your team and start these conversations, because we started off this webinar by saying that they're working with a lot of uncertainty and insecurity and lacking confidence and isolation. And this is one tool that you could use to really bring certainty, bring confidence into their everyday workplace, because a lot of them wouldn't even know how to work from home if they haven't had to work in the past. So first and foremost, really ascertaining who are our team members, what is everybody's role within the team? What are we trying to achieve as a group, and what is our purpose? What is it we're trying to achieve as a team? I think that's really important. And then fitting into one of your team meetings, a conversation around, well, now that we're working remotely, what are some risks or challenges of being a remote team? Like, are there any dangers to how we deliver our client promise now moving forward? And what are those risks and how do we mitigate them? Is it easy for us to drop the ball along the line now because we're not in a centralized location? Do we not have all the tools that are able to make sure that our communication is seamless? What are the risks? And then looking at ways to minimize them or eliminate them. But then the other side of the conversation are, what are all the gains? What are all the opportunities from having to work remotely as well? There's more time for more meaningful conversations. There's less interruptions. What are all the things that we can do now and really harness now that we are working remotely, and that we can focus on things a bit better in terms of, on our own work. You know, it was interesting in looking at that study too, because 35% of people also said they got more done because they really had to focus at home, and they had their hours from say it was 1 to 5, for instance, that they were working really hard. But there was no distractions, there was no colleagues, and no, oh, can I borrow you for a minute, or can you jump into a meeting, and so forth. So there was that. So how do we harness that? You know, we're not traveling to meetings either. So from these discussions that you could add on to your team meeting agendas, then we can look at everything else, like what are our team needs? And I'll take you through some of these, you know, but what are the boundaries that we set now? Because it's really important that work life doesn't get blurred, and that working from home doesn't mean 24/7 hours working from home. I think that's really important. How do we communicate? What are the best channels on how we communicate? So really some good, robust discussions around that. What are the tools that we need now? You know, how do we project manage now? You know, what tools are we going to use? Are we going to use Asana? Are we going to use Trello? Are we going to use Monday.com? What's the software that we're going to use? Team growth. How do we assess our work? How do we schedule in feedback sessions so that we know we're doing okay? You know, who's going to be looking at that? Who do I talk to about this? What is the protocol around this? And importantly too, what are the new rules now? What are the new rules and activities that we set up? Like, what are the rules for meetings? You know, how long are our meetings? How often do we have our meetings? What are the work hours that we work towards? You know, one particular client said no emails after 6 p.m. They will not be, I forbid anybody to respond to any emails after 6 p.m. If you want something attended to, it's in, you know, between the hours of 9 to 6, for instance. So it's about defining some really clear boundaries. And most importantly, this is the one that I'm really passionate about, is time out. Let's look at all those little nuances that really help us to love where we work. You know, often it's the people that we're building relationships with that really help create that sense of love going to work. You know, it's the relationships we have at work. So what are the social activities, or the team health and well-being, or the water cooler chats that we can schedule in? I know that sounds very American, doesn't it? But what are the coffee chats that we can schedule in? You know, in the morning we rush into the kitchen, make our cup, and we have that little that chat. But that also solidifies our relationship. And when we're working remotely, we're missing out on that. So I've got a section there where we talk about that and how do we schedule that in to our remote team lives. So let me take you through some of those. Like I said, you're probably doing some of these. But what this document makes you do on one page is really document everything and make sure this is your method of operation. This is your modus operandi. This is what we all work off. This is what we've agreed are our new working conditions now that we're a remote team. So let's have a look. For team, this one's really important. I thought, it's about stepping into our team members' shoes and really acknowledging who they are, what their roles are, what hours do they work, and respecting the hours that they work, and what are the days, and what else have they got going on, if they're happy to share that. And I think that's really important. You know, that initial picture I sent everybody, I showed you on my first slide, showed a mum, kids, dad in the background. Now that's not the typical situation for everybody, but if I look at this gentleman here, he's an account manager, he works part-time, and he's also studying, you know, so he's available these hours. Sarah, who's an account director, is also homeschooling, or was homeschooling, with 2 primary school kids. So her work hours have changed. So we could imagine that probably from 9 to 12:30, she's homeschooling, but she's available from these hours. So it's really important to put them out there and understand when we can contact our team members, and really have a new way of appreciating how they work, sharing our calendars, and also really, as leaders, communicating that working from home doesn't mean we're working 24/7. Really passionate about that. So that's one thing, really setting the team needs and establishing the boundaries and some new work agreements. The other thing was the conversation that we talked about, the risks of working remotely. What are they? Let's capture them. And again, this is a conversation to have with your teams, and an agenda item to put into your team meetings, and looking and getting the team involved in, well, how do we mitigate those? How do we minimize them or eliminate them? And then what are some of the opportunities? Once we have that robust conversation, then we can start looking at things like, okay, let's talk about what are some of the best ways to communicate, you know, what channels and for what type of communication. For one particular client that I'm working with, there's a real hard rule about we abolish all email conversations. We're not to have any email conversations internally. We use email just for client communication and for external parties. If we want to talk, communicate amongst us, we use Slack, for instance. But they've determined that in this remote working environment, no email conversations. In fact, one of the activities I facilitated was that a team got together and worked out their own communication guidelines, So Microsoft Teams is what they use for their team meetings, and they have team meetings set on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and that's the channel. They use Zoom only for virtual get-togethers and their social drinks, because Zoom allows for as many people, up to 100 people if you're on the minimum base account. Protocols around when they use email, protocols around when they use the phone. WhatsApp is more for social work purposes, not for work purposes. That's really important. When to use text. So this is a really good exercise to use and to get your teams involved in. Again, this could be done over 15 minutes. Get your team to start thinking about the best tools and communication channels, and then put something like this that's just quick and easy to put together. Set meetings. I've read time and time again that you can never over communicate, and that's true for some people. I'm saying read your team's pulse and how often they want communication. But one simple tip is the daily 15-minute meetings. They're called either stand-up meetings, where either in the morning or in the afternoon, so you could have two if you wanted to, but it's about talking about the focus of the day. So it's about standing up and saying, right, going around your team and saying, okay, these are the things I'm working on. Here are some questions I've got. So everybody throws questions at each other so that they're able to then get on with doing their work. A particular client in the mortgage broking industry did this with his team. He had a team of 6 client service managers, and every morning would start with the 15-minute daily meeting. He would ask all the questions that he needed of them, and vice versa. And then if they needed a secondary meeting, that would happen in the afternoon. No reason why you can't do that. You could start your good mornings with a daily focus meeting. So that's really good. And also, I think have really set and forget your meetings, like have them set, like is there management meetings, company-wide meetings, one-on-one meetings. Have them, set them, and then forget them. But everybody knows at a certain time each week, they all jump online, and there's a set agenda, and that we start every meeting, because, one of the bugbears, I suppose, of any working person's life is too many meetings and not enough time to do our work. So it's really important that with using technology like Zoom, that we set the objective and the outcome. So we start a meeting with, okay, the reason for this meeting is we need to ask all the questions. Any questions that you've got, it's really important so that you can get all the information you need. So the outcome is you can get on with your day, having all the resources and tools that you need to complete your work. Yeah, the objective and what are we going to get out of this meeting by the end of it. Really important we do that each and every time, because it keeps us focused. And again, set an agenda, even if it's a 3-point agenda. Get the team involved in doing that. Get the team to own agenda items. You want to hear their voices. Another thing to do is to promote collaboration. And I want to share a case study recently about, that I've been working with a particular client, which is a bookkeeping firm and a virtual CFO firm. And what we've been doing is getting the teams together. So there's a team of 30 bookkeepers and virtual CFOs. And we've been getting involved in virtual team meetings with regards to working on the business. So in addition to doing the communication guidelines, something else that they did was they worked on their core values. The business has grown dramatically from a team of 5 bookkeepers to a team of 30. So we did this over a series of, about 6 weeks. We did different topics, how do we communicate better? We went through the remote team map, really, and they worked out their values, which is quite fitting. They came up with an acronym like EBIT, being a financial services firm. So excellence, booming, integrity, and teamwork. And each and every team member was responsible for drafting that and making sure that it resonated with all 30 of them, and that this is what they take forward. But they become more engaged, more involved when they play a key role in shaping the DNA of a business. And that was a fantastic exercise for the team to get involved in. But it could be any task that you want them to do, but working on the business. and checking in with each other again, and collaborating and using the Zoom chat meetings as well, which is fantastic. The other thing, I'm just conscious of time, I've only got a couple more things. This is the one I'm most passionate about. It's about creating, as leaders, really creating a sense of belonging, and a sense of trust in us as leaders, that everything's going to be okay and that we're there for them, we've got their backs. And how do we create that sense of belonging? And for me, it's about looking at the things, like I said earlier on, that help people or that people love to come to work for. And one is the relationships. So encourage your team to schedule in their calendars, scheduled coffee chats, 15-minute coffee chats. It could be about anything. It could be about last night's program, or it could be a venting session, or it could be what they're doing on the weekend. But encourage them to schedule in those coffee chats. You know, this is what they did when they were together. This is what they're craving and missing. Scheduled morning tea, or let's have our lunch together, you know. Virtual team drinks and dinners. And I'm so happy to hear that a lot of organisations are doing this. You know, themed meetings, you know, and I'm sure, here's the other thing too, our team members working from home are also letting us into their home. You know, we're taking more note of the background and the environment that they're working from. We're noticing photos, we're noticing kids coming in, dogs popping up on desks and so forth. So we're actually getting to know them on a different level that we would never have known them on a face-to-face level. They're letting us into their home, but it's important that we encourage a holistic experience for them too. You know, let's meet your 5-year-old, and that you've always talked about, and your pet and so forth. I'm really passionate about that, and I think we need to schedule them like we do meetings, like business meetings, because this is gold and really essential, especially for those team members that feel isolated and are living on their own too. This is really important. Tools, I think we've talked about tools in terms of communication channels, but also agreeing, if you've got certain tools that work, like for instance, a lot of clients are on Microsoft 365, then use that. Use what you've got, because that will get you further ahead. You know, don't get anything new if you don't need it. But work out what's important for you and use that. Continue to use that. You know, what, are we going to use Zoom for our meetings? Are we going to use Asana or Trello or G Suite for our project management? What are we going to use? Let's agree on those tools. So what now? Good. It's good. We've got 5 more minutes to go, but what I want to encourage you to do, there's quite a bit there, and I'm happy to share. Please email me. I'm more than happy to share the template and to have a conversation if you wish to discuss this further. But really start with something small today. You know, whether it's let's schedule a coffee chat, or hey, talk to somebody and give them a bit of feedback today, or just something that you can build in week out, and that will start to make a big difference. You know, again, with that map that I showed you, you could take each of those topics and put them into your already planned meetings as an agenda item for discussion, and allow 15 minutes for that. But it's about having that discussion, capturing it, and just making sure that we're there for our team members, especially in a time of uncertainty. At least with their workplace, they can feel a sense of certainty and build their confidence and their trust. And yeah, that's essentially it, really. If there's any questions, I welcome them. And again, any conversations that you want to have post this lunch, then I'm here.
Yeah, and I will follow this event out with an email. So once again, if you haven't already, pop in your LinkedIn in the chat. And I'll make sure that everyone who shares their LinkedIn are email those who share, so you guys can connect after today. Thank you so much, Anna. That was wonderful. And I really loved what you said about, you know, kind of merging the professional and the personal, because obviously we're kind of forced to do that anyway.
Yeah.
And having those, meeting the 5-year-olds, you know, introducing people to your pet, or, you know, whatever that small piece might be, just normalizing something that feels very unnormal, I guess. Unnormal.
Totally, Kate. Absolutely. Yeah. It's anything that we can do to personalize it, but also create that sense of security as leaders.
Yeah.
And it's okay for us to be vulnerable as well and share our experiences, because it normalizes it for everybody else too. But this is the future of work, though. You know, I'm sure when post-COVID, we'll have a lot of the team members come back and look for, one of the perks would be flexible working. And we've been there now, you know, we've been thrown in. So let's really take the good things out of it and really keep growing that.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much. I've really
Thank you
enjoyed
so
being part of this.
much. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Well, guys, it looks like I think Anna's probably answered everyone's question. She's jam-packed about an hour's worth of content in 25 minutes.
That's
Um,
totally fair.
so thank you so much again, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day. And if you're in Victoria, get out into this beautiful weather.
Yes.
And I'll look forward to seeing you all online again soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you again,
Kate.
Anna. Bye,
Thanks.
guys.
Bye-bye.